Hear me, so okay. Um, so good morning. That was a lovely introduction. I didn't know that I was all of those things, but I appreciate the introduction. Um, so my uncle asked me to speak for a few minutes today, and honestly, up until last night, I had no idea what I was going to say. Um, but I guess something that's been on my heart for a while is like what it means to be young and set apart. So I think I will talk about that. So first, I looked up the definition of like what set apart means, and according to Google, it means to separate something and keep it for a special purpose. And I guess that's kind of what God is doing with us, saying we're set apart. We're, we're here for a special purpose. Um, However, I want to speak kind of to people that are my age, if there's anyone listening that's my age, but I guess everything can apply to everyone. So, um, as a young person, I recognize that this concept of like being set apart sounds kind of boring and it doesn't really sound fun. Um, because unfortunately, a lot of times it means that you may be alone. Um, you may have heard the phrase like it's lonely at the top, but it's also lonely like when you're trying to like follow God and do the right thing, and that's something that I've realized. And that's at any age. It's just lonely when you're trying to do what's right. And the last few years, I've had several times where I've just prayed and say, I don't really want to be set apart anymore. And I think I've literally said those words. I think I said it last week, probably. I just didn't really want to be set apart anymore. As someone who grew up, unfortunately, with an abusive step parent, lived in what I called survival mode. Excuse me, and excuse me, and that's exactly what it sounds like. Like I was literally just trying to make it to the next day without being abused physically or mentally or emotionally, and that was really hard. And so I remember thinking, like, when I got to high school and college, like, I would finally just live my life. Um, Sorry about that. Apparently, Lola agrees with me. And, I just wanted to, like, let go and let loose and, like, be a kid, be a teenager, be a college student. And when I got to those ages in high school and college, I didn't really do that for the most part. And so part of the reason is because even though we grew up that way, we still went to church. And so I still knew the word and I still, knew what was right and what was wrong. And I still had a lot of convictions that kind of kept me from doing what a lot of my peers were doing. And sometimes, to be honest, those convictions were frustrating because, like I said, I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to be a normal teenager. I wanted to be a normal college student. I wanted to be a normal young adult. I still feel like that as a young adult. I still feel like I just want to be a young adult. But it kind of just came to a point where I had to realize like that this is the life that God chose for me, if that makes sense. So as I'm getting older, the feeling of like being set apart and feeling the strain of, doing what's right versus doing what the world wants, it's kind of intensified. And lately I've had a lot of prayer sessions where it's not really me praying, it's more of me crying and telling God that, he's not being fair and like, why can't I do X, Y, and Z like my peers are doing? And it's been a lot of like crying and shouting rather than praying. And sometimes I feel like my faithfulness isn't being rewarded. And I know I'm not the only person that can relate to that. And I don't think that's just as a young person. I think that's just as people that try to serve the Lord in general, we feel like sometimes life isn't fair to us because, we're doing everything God says to do as best we can. And where's the reward in that? And I've had to realize that sometimes I'm looking at my peers' life and I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. All you see is like the nice pictures or the nice cars or the nice house, but you really don't know what's going on. And you don't know what their relationship with God is like, if they have one at all. And I've also had to come to realize that that's not really any of my business. my business is my relationship with God and like what I'm doing to further that. And that's what I should be paying attention to. So I guess to close, I still do sometimes feel like life isn't fair and, I really don't want to be set apart, but there are a couple things that I'm realizing. The first is that, again, if you want to live for God, it's going to be kind of lonely sometimes. And there are several passages in the Bible that explain that the walk that God has called us to is a narrow road and that many people aren't going to want to take that road because it doesn't look as appealing as the wide road where success and like prosperity preaching and the prosperity gospel, like that looks fun, that looks cool, but the real narrow road where we like follow the scriptures and we do what God says, even though we don't know, that's scary. And a lot of people aren't going to want to follow it. The second thing is that we can't compare our lives to others. And God's definition of success is different than ours. So unfortunately, all of us won't be millionaires. All of us won't have like the fancy cars or like the fancy house. But what I can say is that even though, especially recently, I've been shouting at God a lot, he still takes care of us, and we still take care of me, I can say. And I think you guys can all say the same thing. Like he's taking care of us, even though we sometimes feel like life isn't fair. And then the last thing, I just wanted to end with a verse that most of us probably know, Romans 8:28, and it says, "And we know that all things work together for good, for them that love God and them who are called according to His purpose." So again, even though we feel like life may be falling apart right now, or if you look at the news, the world may be falling apart right now. As long as we keep doing like what God is telling us to do, things will always work out. So even though it's hard, again, to be set apart as a young person or middle-aged person or older person, whatever age you are, it's hard to walk this walk, but we shouldn't give up because God is always with us. Thank you.